Shabbat shalom, everyone. This chapel is an interesting place to give a sermon in. One time on a Friday night, I was speaking, and a hawk landed right above this window with a squirrel and began to devour the squirrel while I was speaking. No one listened to that sermon that night. And now I have to compete with cute kids in the courtyard. Boy, howdy. All right, I've got to make this one good, all right? Let's see what I can do. You've gotten to know me over these past 3 years together. Heard me give a lot of sermons about movies. Goes without saying I'm quite the cinephile, as you would call it. I love watching films. I love learning about films. I love studying films. It's an art form that I am completely in love with. And also during these 3 years, you've heard me give a lot of sermons about literature. I love books, especially the classics. You might even recall that I was a high school English teacher before I became a rabbi. It's another art form that I'm obsessed with. So naturally, if I love books and movies, it's only obvious that I was going to be the first in line to see Christopher Nolan's new film, The Odyssey. Ooh, scoffs I hear. I know this admission might attract some scoffs. After all, many people weren't happy with the casting choices or with a myriad of other decisions in the film. I get it. But my thinking was, Christopher Nolan can make 3 good Batman movies. Surely he can make 1 decent Odyssey movie. Whether you like his films or not, one needs to admit, Christopher Nolan is an amazing filmmaker. The dude is enormously talented, and he has respect for cinema that I think is unparalleled. Perhaps the reason I was intrigued with seeing this film is because he shot it using a very special kind of camera, one specifically designed for IMAX. Friends, please humor me for a moment while I nerd out and give you way more information than you need about these film cameras. Most of you are probably aware that modern-day movies are almost exclusively shot using digital cameras, and when they are screened in movie theaters, they use a digital projector. However, The Odyssey was filmed using a new generation of IMAX film camera designed to be quiet, lighter, and more practical for narrative filmmaking, and it was shot on 70mm IMAX film, which might not mean much to the layman, but if you can imagine a normal frame of film, it's about this big, okay? Each frame in this movie for Nolan's Odyssey is about 10 times larger. Each frame is like this big, capturing an extraordinary amount of detail, and when projected on a true IMAX screen, the image has a level of clarity, texture, and scale that is difficult for digital formats to replicate. It is beautiful. However, because these film reels are so big, they weigh over 100 pounds, there are only 40 theaters in the entire world that have projectors capable of playing them. That is why Nolan is a true artist, shooting a movie in which only 40 theaters in the world can play your film the way it's meant to be shown. Only 40 theaters. 25 of those are here in the United States. 2 of those are in Texas, and 1 of them is right here in San Antonio, the IMAX at River Sitter. Can you tell I've done my research on this? So I bought my ticket online, and I waited. And I have been drooling for months for Nolan, 70mm. And I went on my day off. I did not want to go on a crowded day. And I had my popcorn, and I was about to go into the theater, and a 16-year-old kid working this kiosk says, "Hey, you can't go in there. I'm sorry, the film projector's overheating. The show's been canceled." No! Friends, I was stunned. I was crushed. I was in disbelief. 40 theaters in the world, and this one, my one, is down for the count. I guess the River Center is the Achilles heel. There was a lot of groaning. Sorry. All right. When the kid told me that I could, keep in mind, this is like a teenager. He told me I couldn't go in. I freaked out. I started begging him to let me in that theater. I said, come on, man. I'm a cinephile. I love literature. Nolan 70 millimeter. Let me in. Let me go. He did not let me go. And in that moment, I was reminded of the character Odysseus himself, the noble protagonist of the Odyssey. And I remember the scene from Homer's epic poem where Odysseus orders his men to plug their ears with wax and tie him to the mast of the ship while they sail past the sirens, telling them to ignore whatever plea he makes to be set free. And while they travel near the sirens' enchanted rock, Odysseus is overcome by the sirens' beautiful song, and he begs his men to loosen his ropes. Let me go, he begs them over and over, but they don't let him go. In our Torah portion for the week, Parshat Ve'et, it likewise begins with begging. In fact, that's what the word Ve'et means. It means, and I begged. Now, just who is doing the begging here? It's Moses. He is recounting to the Jewish people his response to God, telling him that he won't be able to enter the land because he struck the rock instead of speaking to it. God gives Moshe this news, and immediately Moses begs him, let me go. Let me go. But again, God does not let him go either. Instead, God does something interesting, a compromise, if you will. God tells Moses, you can't go into the land, but I will let you see it before you die. And on the surface, this might seem like a cruel compromise. After all, Moses spent his entire life leading the Jewish people through the wilderness. He carried them through slavery, through the Red Sea, through moments of rebellion, through moments of uncertainty. And yet, at the very end of the life, when he finally reaches the destination he has dreamed of for 40 years, God says, you can look, but you cannot enter. But perhaps this was not just a punishment. Perhaps it was also an act of mercy. Because sometimes, friends, going is not actually what's best for the situation. Sometimes we are so convinced that we need to go somewhere, achieve something, or experience something that we can't imagine why anyone or anything would try to stop us. If we are not allowed to go, we think the only possible outcome is that something has gone terribly wrong. Dare I say it, sometimes not being allowed to go is exactly what is best for the situation. Think about Odysseus and those sirens. Odysseus knew he was vulnerable. He knew that if he heard their song, he would not be able to control himself, and so he made a plan before the temptation even arrived. Tie me to the mast, he said. Do not listen to me, no matter how much I beg, no matter how much I scream. Do not let me go. Because if his men had listened to him and they had untied him and let him go, Odysseus would have jumped into the water, he would have chased after the sirens, and he would have drowned, leaving his men without proper leadership. Sometimes the things we are begging for in the very moment is the very thing that will destroy everything. Perhaps that is what is happening with Moses. Moses is not a bad person. He's not someone who suddenly stopped loving God or stopped caring about Am Yisrael. He just made a mistake. A serious mistake, yes, but I think we can agree that it's a human one. And God's decision was not simply about keeping Moses from having one final moment of joy. It was about maintaining the order in the new world that God had created. If Moses, the greatest prophet who had ever lived, could deliberately disobey God and still receive the exact reward he was told he would not receive, what would that teach the Jewish people? The chain of command would be disrupted, the relationship between God and humanity would become unclear, and chaos would ensue. But God does not simply say no to Moses and leave him with nothing. Instead, he gives him something else, a compromise. God says, you can't go in, but I will allow you to see the land. You can't experience it in the way you wanted, but I still will give you a glimpse of the dream you spent your life pursuing. Maybe, dear friends, this is a lesson we all need to hear, because all of us have moments when we're standing outside the door begging to be let in. We want the opportunity, we want the experience, and we want the thing that we've been waiting for. And sometimes the answer we receive is no. But maybe the question is not only, why was I not allowed to go in? Perhaps the question is, what was I being protected from? Or what other opportunity was waiting for me? Or what blessings come to all of us because that door stayed closed? Because sometimes in life we are not allowed to go where we wanted to go, and only later do we realize that being stopped was not a punishment. It was a form of protection. It was a different kind of blessing. And interestingly enough, that is exactly what happened to me with the Odyssey. I begged the kid at the IMAX theater to let me in. I pleaded with him. I gave him every reason in the world why I needed to go into that theater. Nolan, 70 millimeter, a lifetime cinematic experience. He still did not let me go. And of course, now in retrospect, he was right. Because had I gone into that theater, the projector would have overheated even more. The film reel would have been damaged, and that rare work of 70 millimeter art, one of only a handful in the entire world, would have been destroyed. I was so focused on wanting to go in that I never considered that staying out might have been the better outcome, and not just for me, but for the whole community. But thankfully, just like God gave Moshe a compromise, the IMAX River Center gave me one as well. While they did not let me go in to the special theater that day, they did give me something else, a voucher so that I could still see the film in a normal screening. So in conclusion, no, I didn't get exactly what I wanted. I did not get the experience I had imagined, but I still got to see the story. I still got to experience the art. And sometimes, friends, that is the compromise we need to accept. Sometimes God does not let us go where we want to go, but he gives us exactly what we need when we get there. So no, Moses didn't enter the promised land. Odysseus didn't always sail the straightest course, and I didn't enter the IMAX theater that day. But somehow, we all still reached the ending we needed. And I have to say, the movie was still pretty darn good. Shabbat shalom.